What is an employee value proposition and what do you actually do with it? Today on Culture Builder Live. Hey, I am Chris Wink, the CEO and co-founder of Technically, the news organization with a community of technology professionals. Today, we'll be talking about employee value prop, EVP. It is a wonky industry term that you may hear a lot and go in and out of understanding. We'll get into the details today with Marc Coleman, the CEO and co-founder of the Tactile Group. Marc, thanks for being here.
It is a pleasure. A pure pleasure to be here with you, Chris.
Pure pleasure. Pure pleasure. So, Marc, we're going to get a little bit into Tactile Group, what your own EVP is, how you talk about it. So we'll get to that in a moment. But let's start with some basics. You're the CEO of a software development firm. You surely think a fair bit about this when you grow and build teams as you have over the last decade or so. Start with the basics. How are you thinking about what an employee value prop is? What does that mean to you and your own use of it?
Yeah, so for us, EVP is really like the internal promise we make to our team about compensating for the full value that they bring. So where the employee brand is like what we're how great we say we are externally, the value proposition is what we actually deliver on in house, right? So it's not just compensation, it's not just benefits, it's also the stability of the organization. It's location, which I'm sure we're going to talk about a little bit more in its shifting importance in these kind of crazy and interesting times. But it's also respect and empathy and culture. So all of those things kind of bound together is what we kind of delivered on for what our team brings to us.
I like that. I don't know if I've heard actually as crisp a clarification there between EB, employer brand, is essentially the external manifestation. It's what someone who doesn't work at your firm might say about the Tactile Group. EVP is the unspoken or formal contract in a less structured way between you and employee. How much for your use is an employee value prop something that is neatly written down as opposed to kind of generally a feeling? Is this a formally written down document or a few sentences, or is this something less formal than that?
Well, it kind of is based in our mission, but it's brought into action in our things like our employee manual, right? We've found a way to operationalize our empathetic culture, right? It shows up in really equitable family leave. It shows up in how we're approaching PTO. It shows up in how we're approaching flex time and that work-life balance. So it starts out at our tagline is we're designed to give a damn. We actively look for approach work and seek opportunities that at the end of the day improve the lives of all people. So that includes people on our team. It starts in our mission and it's executed in our actions. And it's not actually a really formal document at this point.
Yeah, no, that's those 2 points there. I like what you said, that it's executed in your actions. But I think you said maybe documented. I may have missed that, but in the mission. So you do see a relationship between mission, vision, and values, which I assume are formally written down, and then EVP, which is perhaps more of a unspoken, is maybe too dramatic a concept, but like kind of an unspoken understanding between employees and management, as it were, of this is why I'm here. This is what's the deal is.
Essentially, yeah, and it's kind of our ethos, and it's also, again, it's formalized in things like our employee manual, which lay out these things. So we have it's where the rubber, I hate these aphorisms, but it's where the rubber meets the road. It's where we actually are doing what we say we're going to do, and it's one of the reasons why I think that we're able to do what we do now is because I think we do well by our team.
There is, of course, an understanding that sometimes an employer brand can be a lie. It can
smoke and mirrors, baby.
Conjured by leadership without ever you're implying that you can't quite do that because an EVP is held between employee and employer. That actually, let me back up. So a value prop, generally, that concept, it's like an 80s era concept it's from a McKinsey paper, and it's written about like the central understanding and relationship between value provider and value receiver. So most classically, that showed up on the sales side. Sales and marketing talk a lot about a company's value proposition, and that it got very like obsessed in like venture style raises, that you had to define what is your company's value prop, what is the very tight and narrow value creation that you make that others can share. And the idea was like someone had to believe it, right? You could say, "Oh, I make the best hamburger in the world," but if you don't, it's not real. It is two sides of that. Then HR, recruiting, kind of culture took hold of the value prop concept, and then really brought that to an employee value prop. And critically, it is the employee. It is the value that the company is meant to create for the employee. So let me then push into Mark. How do you define what an EVP is? If you are giving recommendation to an HR pro on the smaller side, or maybe an established company, but who doubts or questions what their EVP is, how do you begin to decide what is my EVP? What are some of the steps you took or you would recommend others taking?
Well, I think that you can even start backwards. I mean, if whatever you're telling the company, I mean, what you're telling the world, or what your brand is, what your brand around your culture is in specific. If you if you're small enough, you should know. But if you're large enough, you should find out whether there's an alignment between what you're telling the world and what's your employees are actually experiencing, right? So if there's a disconnect between that, then your EVP is crap, right? But if they're in alignment and you're actually doing what you're saying you're supposed to do, you're going to, and the data bears this out. Gartner surveys and studies show this. You're going to have a lot more retention, right? You're not going to, especially now when employees or the great resignation, great reassignment, or whatever you want to call it. People are going to want to stay in a place that's doing what they say they're going to do around how they're providing value and how they're treating their employees. So if there's a disconnect between your brand and your value prop, you have a problem. If you have them lined up, the value to the company is that you're going to retain people, you're going to attract people, and you're going to have a more stable kind of workforce.
How did you define Tactile's EVP? Where did it come from, and how has it changed? Maybe share a little bit. What is yours, and remind me again, when did you start Tactile?
So Tactile started in 2004. We've been around for almost 18 years.
Did it change?
Oh yeah, we started out as a graphic design company. Graphic design.
But did the EVP change? Would you say that it was different?
The EVP changed? No, it hasn't.
Okay.
It's being the founder, I've always led from a very empathetic kind of mindset. I've been and I've kind of tried to make sure that stayed as a core of the company as we've grown. So we're leading from a place of empathy, and that's kind of the core to our value. We've operationalized it. We've had to operationalize it as we've gotten larger, so it's repeatable, and so that it's equitable, not only amongst all demographics and all geographic locations and all genders and gender expressions. It also has to be repeatable. We can't just have offering one value to someone in the company that's different and inequitable to someone else in the company, because then your whole EVP falls apart as well.
A bone of contention I make on the sales and marketing side, savvy folks make the clear and obvious point that if your value prop is attractive to everyone, it's meaningless, because in truth, you want a value prop that narrows the focus of who you're going to get your sales team to talk to. And I'm quite fixated on the comparison on the recruiting employer side, that if your employer brand, the public facing expression of your internal EVP, if it is only rainbow, sunshine, and puppies, and everyone could benefit, I don't know if I think I would challenge similarly that I don't know if it's doing you any good. That I think often I push clients of ours on the technical side, even on the newsroom side, that I think the savviest folks like can say, well, you could be a great professional, but for XYZ reason, we might not be the right fit for you. And that doesn't
Sure.
mean that you're bad or that we're bad. It's that there's a misalignment. So I wonder if you could even talk a little bit about dig into some of your EVP and what's a great professional who just might not be the right fit for Tactile based on EVP or then how you might express it as an EV.
I'm gonna go back to my drumbeat of this empathy piece. I mean, we have had some folks come through the company who before we kind of tighten up our kind of onboarding and interview process that didn't have that kind of sense of empathy and didn't value their colleagues as much as we like folks to value each other on the team, and they were good at their job, but they actually slowed down the entire team. So we were misaligned as far as that goes. We were aligned on other things, but without the empathy piece, folks are not going to be successful with us. So that's part of our EVP is essential to the way the company runs.
I don't want to get too lost in the particular moment in time we're in, but it seems too relevant to ignore. Sure. We on the tech lead side are reporting on a degree of wage inflation in a particularly competitive hiring landscape that's even in comparison to pre-pandemic moments when tech hiring no one would have said it was easy in 2019. Yeah. And it's only gotten more challenging. One through line that we've reported some on is for a ton of reasons, for in part long-term low interest rates, so that might be changing in the coming years, but there's been a flood of external capital into private market business investing. It's one of the biggest macroeconomic stories of the last decade or so. It's one part of the story of the acceleration of venture-backed software companies leading this generation of digital transformation. And one narrative is that has ginned up rates of salary in professional roles faster than others. In the data, I will clarify that it's actually lower wage earners. It's services folks who have actually seen the highest percentage gains in the last couple of years. But anecdotally and in some data, we're finding employers challenged by the rate of growth in salaries. And I wonder if a bootstrapped and or other professional services firm, a contract-oriented software firm like Tactile, I wonder if you're experiencing wage pressure in a new way in the last couple of years and how EVP relates. So I guess first, challenge me. Is my assumption right that you're experiencing some of that wage pressure, and is EVP showing up in any of your strategy?
No, you're 100% correct. We definitely are feeling that wage pressure as we're entering this period of pretty rapid growth for us. We are challenged in that as a contract-based company, we have our contracts are multi-year engagements, and our pricing is certain fixed. It's very hard for us to instantly react to pressures around wages based on the contracts we have in house. And also the other part of our EVP is this economic parity piece, right? So folks that come into our company later, we have, or now during this moment, we have the pressure of trying to reach towards these much higher salary asks, but be in parity with people who have been at the company longer in similar roles. So that's the challenge. One of the challenges we're having. What we're having to do, and the only tool, since we can't really compete with these venture backed salaries that are coming out right now, is to really lean into that EVP, to really lean into what else we actually provide to our team members in addition to the salary. And we still feel like we were able to pay competitive wages based on where the world should be in the less crazy times. But right now we have to lean into that EVP because it's the one thing that we are really strong at, and one thing that will differentiate us from other companies in our situation.
Thank you for that clarification. It's certainly something we're seeing a ton of. So maybe last tactical note before I go to the last line of questions. To get to EVP, you alluded to this. I just want to hit it clearly for those watching. classically, there are tons of surveying tools. There are consultants that do that work. We technically have even helped some clients do this, to do some employee surveying. Critically, you often do some employee interviews. If, as you allude to, if you're small enough of a firm, you can do this yourself. Though sometimes the third-party distance is helpful. If you're the manager, the owner, or the operator, sometimes it might be helpful for you to get out of the way, because you might not want to influence what folks might say they think the employee value prop is. I'm wondering if there's any other really specific tactics you'd advise folks to consider if they wanted to decide what is their EVP.
If you're, I mean, we're relatively small, so I'm able to, and as the founder, I'm able to set that direction. But every month we check in with every single employee and make sure that we're actually doing what we say we're going to do, and give them an opportunity to help us course correct, or see anything that's out of line, or just have a general conversation. And through those kind of monthly check-ins, it's a reality check for us, right? So there and during that, and during our kind of interactions with team members, we're able to understand what's important to them, and that kind of gets woven into the fabric of the company with these just constant communications that we're having.
Well said. That there's a yeah. What the deal is seems helpful. I also like, if you have strong enough relationships with those senior team members or reports of yours, it can be helpful to encourage a challenging conversation, but to really ask, like, what is the deal here? Why is this the right place for you? And you might be surprised by what you hear. Marc, we got to come to close here momentarily, but I just want to make this actionable. What do you do with this? So once you've done your homework and you've either done an employee survey, maybe you've had some employee interviews, maybe you have even written a version down. You opened up a document, you just started putting pen to paper of what is our employee value prop? How does that compare with our company value prop? What is its relationship to mission, vision, values? Why are we different? Why would a great professional not work here? I think is always a question that I like to add. You should challenge yourself. Who is someone who would be a great teammate somewhere else, but wouldn't be a good teammate here? Is a challenging question that you could use to help define. Once you have all that, what do you do with an EVP? What are the tactics from there?
Well, you make sure that you're looking for folks who will find value in the value that you're offering, right? You weave those questions, that understanding, or and especially into your hiring process. You get everybody looks great on paper, and then once you get them into to talk to a few folks, they're like, oh, they don't really care about this flex time. They don't really care about how we kind of support each other. They don't really care about the things that makes Tactile special. So they're probably not going to be as good as they may be on paper, as good how strong their skill set may be, or they may be asking for triple the amount of money we're able to pay for that role. So there are lots of once you really understand the EVP and you weave it into your hiring process, you're gonna have a lot better time. Excuse me.
There's I'll pick up a note that there's a lot of great guidance on structured and repeat interview processes. That you want to have an interview process does not range by candidate to candidate. And so a piece of advice that we typically give clients and folks we've advised is it helps to say, here are the standard questions we use for this kind of hire. Is our EVP showing up here? Are we asking questions that would help us note, on question 3 is where we would expect to see elements or qualities that might show up in our value words, or might show up in our EVP. And I also know, Marc, I wonder how much, when you talk about what your employer brand is, to bring us all the way back to your earliest point of EB is in some sense an external expression of your internal EVP. Is that an active conversation you've ever had, or is it even just informally in the mind of you or other teammates of, we want to make sure that our employer brand is pushing out what we think is true and authentic about our internal EVP? Is that a relationship in the recruiting and kind of attraction stage?
Absolutely. I mean, like our employee brand is kind of tied up in our mission statement and our value prop, I mean, our external value prop, and even our tagline. Our tagline is we're designed to give a damn. Right. So that means we actively seek out work that improves the lives of all people. We care about our people internally. We care about our clients. We care about our planet. We care about our communities. So all of those things are what we're putting out in the world, and our EVP is how that's showing up inside. So again, they have to be aligned. They have to be aligned with each other.
Well said. Alignment is a good way to go out. Marc Coleman, CEO and founder of Tactile Group, a software development firm that focuses on the public sector. Marc, thanks so much for being here.
It was an absolute honor, Chris.
It was an honor. We'll see, Marc. We'll see you again soon. Thanks all those for listening to this week's Culture Builder Live. As always, there'll be a recap in the Culture Builder newsletter. If you're not already subscribed, you should technically /subscribe, and a recap article will show up on Technically. Thanks again. We'll see you next week. Bye, everybody.